Welcome back, guys. Behavior Strategies for Class. And this is where we empower educators with behavior strategies of effective management that works. So this is it, right? We're near the end of the school year, the growth, the struggles, the wins. Today we are doing a behavior review. And what have you learned about student behavior this year? What has surprised you? What has helped you grow as you learned through your students' behaviors? So whether you're looking for insight, some more strategies, just reassurance, you are not alone. This episode is for you. So stay tuned, guys, because we're going to talk about it all. Welcome to Behavior Strategies for Class. I am Diane Bachman, your behavior paraprofessional with over 15 years of experience working in special education. And I'm so glad you're here because I'll be teaching you about social emotional learning, behavior strategies, trauma-informed care, and more. So if you are tired of being frustrated and not knowing what to do with your students who have challenging and disruptive behavior, you're in the right place. Now, if you're ready to become more equipped to help your students learn and grow, let's listen in to today's episode. And before we get started, I want to encourage you, check out the show notes. Sign up to be on the email list and be a part of the Behavior Strategies community. This is where we will share even more tips and tricks, and you'll be the first to know of new offers and events that are coming up. So some of the things that I've learned working with our students this year is that their behaviors sometimes just break your heart because you know that they are going through some heartbreak. And it definitely just gives you a lot more understanding. And a lot of other staff are like, you guys are so patient with these kids. They're hitting us, they're yelling at us. And we just remain patient because ultimately we know the background, what's going on, what's kind of molded this behavior. Now, this does not excuse us or them from learning how to behave appropriately, right? Because even though we're at the elementary level, they're moving on, right? They're going to be going to middle school, high school, adulthood. How are they going to function in society if we're not helping to lay that foundation? And so still being able to have that empathy and compassion, but still hold them to expectations in challenging them to do those hard things. Because a lot of the time it's like they'll be telling it, it's too hard, it's too hard. It's like, buddy, you got this. You can do hard things. We have to push through sometimes. And so just watching their growth as well to push to really, they do push through certain things. It's funny to see. It's kind of like one of our students, he reminds me of just like when your child is a baby and you just can't wait until they talk, and then you know what they say. Now you just don't want them to, you want them to stop talking because they talk so much. And I feel like sometimes one of our students, we have been telling him and teaching him use your words. You have to advocate for yourself. What do you need? You have to tell people. And he definitely does now. And whether or not we like it, he doesn't want to be in school. He doesn't want to do his work. I just don't want to go. I don't feel like it. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I get that. And I thank you for sharing. But the fact is we're still here. We still have to do something. This is why we're in school. But just seeing their growth and how they are using their words and expressing their needs, whether or not we're able to meet them at that exact moment, But the fact that he's expressing them and not just lashing out physically, we are able to help him deal with whatever it is that he's dealing with at that moment. Another student, it's really been a tough year. We have had so many students that have just kind of been up and down and kind of all over the place with behaviors. Even though we have done our best to stay consistent with expectations, there's just been other factors going on with these students that they're not able to see as much growth or to get as much growth as they really could. But like I said, we do our best to stay consistent, to hold them to the expectations of what's required of them. And even we got some younger students like the middle of the year, and to try and adapt them to like what's expected here, even though that wasn't what you were used to. And just knowing, again, obviously we know every student is unique. Every student has their own needs and sometimes it's their own disabilities. And so we want to help work with them through those to be the best they can be, to be the best learner that they can be. And so we've definitely seen growth in some students. We've seen some growth and then kind of going backwards a little bit. And then we'll see a little bit of growth and then it kind of goes back a little bit. And I'm sure you have seen that as well in some of your students, just with, their life situations. Obviously, we have no control over them and what happens with those students. And then the next thing you know, they're back in class and now there's a whole nother behavior situation. So the key right there, I think, is the growth and celebrating those little wins, and to know that we can still learn and grow through those struggles. And we can't give up. So I'm going to ask you some questions and hopefully help you think through some of the behaviors that you have dealt with this year in your students and kind of what have you learned. So my first question would be, have you seen any positive changes in your students' behavior? Now, some of you may have to really dig to find any positive changes. Some of you may see just little changes, and those are great. And some of you have maybe seen, a 180 with some of your students. But being able to take time and see, what, your work has paid off in this area, and your students are now able to express themselves, or they're now able to know that they can go to the quiet room or your quiet corner, and why they're there. They're not abusing that situation. They're using it correctly, and then they're able to come back and get back to work. Other times students are like, what, I just need a minute. Or I've heard students say like, I need my space, or please don't talk to me right now. And it's like, okay, we won't. We'll give you space. We'll give you some time, and then we'll get back to whatever it is we were doing. So what positive changes have you seen? The next question would be, what strategies have worked well? Now, again, the caveat is obviously not every behavior strategy works well on every single student. So as you've gotten to know your students, what strategy seems to help them the most? Sometimes our one student, like, he loves to draw. Like during his break time, that's his thing. He loves to draw. Another student, they could care less about drawing. They want to play with Legos, or they want an outside break. What is it that works for them? Or you find out they really struggle during math. And so we know for sure, like, we have to push in at that time and be in the classroom during that time. Because they have learned as well to say, I need help over here. And that's a big one too, right? To have your students admit, I need help. Instead of just sitting, getting upset, getting frustrated, getting, either angry, or some kids just sit and cry, expressing themselves and being able to say, I need help. Or can you help me, please? Of course, those are the magic words, and we love to hear that. So, what strategies have worked well for some of your students? And then this next question goes back to the quiet room, or a quiet corner, or a calm corner, or a refocus area. Whatever it is that you call it, do you have one? Did you create one? And sometimes I've seen in some rooms it's just one little chair and one little basket of a couple fidgets, and that's it. Other rooms I've seen, it's a desk, just separate from everybody else, and there's like a couple posters there that give suggestions on what they can do for their time, and then they return to work. The worst possible one, unfortunately, that I saw, and I know she was just trying to figure it out, but she just put like a comfy cushion like in the middle of the back of her room and put a timer there. So of course the kids just played. They just played when they went back there because it wasn't a really designated area and there really weren't a lot of parameters kind of around that. So that unfortunately didn't work very well. But hopefully you had a space, a designated area, whether it's a desk or a beanbag or whatever it was or is, and it worked. Or did it not work? Maybe it didn't work. Is there some other way that you could set it up for next year that you think may be more effective? Some things to think about. And then another question is, what was your most challenging behavior that you dealt with effectively? So this is a win for you, right? So you have this student kind of losing it in your classroom. And let's say in the past, you react, maybe you raise your voice, maybe you're yelling for them to get out of the room, or you don't care, or stop talking, or whatever it is, and your level met his or her level, and it did not work, right? So now it's kind of a little explosive dynamic happening in your classroom, and your student is not de-escalating because you've just kind of raised that bar there because your emotional state matched his. So let's say you actually were able to react calmly and either just walk over to him or her and say, now is not the time. I can see you're upset, but now is not the time. I can talk to you in 5 minutes or whatever it is. Maybe you were able to redirect him, maybe non-verbally, and they actually listened. Maybe you non-verbally directed them to the quiet area or your calm corner. Or maybe you just quietly went over and said, okay, how about you go take a bathroom break and come back when you're ready. Or just walk and go get a drink of water. Or would you like me to call the counselor? Whatever it is, you effectively de-escalated that situation. Now, granted, it's not going to be all the time automatic that student just like calms down, right? But I'm telling you, you will see a difference if you react calmly with a calm body, with a calm voice, and you just let them know, not okay. We'll talk about this when you're calm, or when you can sit down for a few minutes, or whatever it is. And you reacted effectively. Like, rejoice over that. Take note of your wins as well, because I know if you've been listening, you've been learning other strategies, or maybe just being reminded of strategies that you already know, and then you've been encouraged to use them. And so I want you to celebrate you, because you've been amazing and you've stuck it through, and you see now the difference in your reaction to when a student becomes escalated and frustrated, and you can calmly react and just kind of simmer that behavior. Again, it's not a magic pill, but it does make a huge difference. Just today, working with a student who was upset, and she really wanted something, and it's like, now is not the time. And she would sit and scream, and then she'd look at you. No reaction. She'd scream a little bit more. No reaction. And then she finally stopped screaming. Because I'm not giving in just because you're screaming around the whole entire school. But, or even if you're just kicking me. You're throwing a tantrum. That's not going to get you what you need. Or what you want, per se. At that point, it's what you want. Being able to calmly react makes such a big difference. So, how have you dealt effectively with your students' challenging behavior? And then the last one is, what area can you improve on? Right? As educators, we're always looking for ways to do things better, to improve on, to, maybe teach more effectively in an area, or use a different tool in order to engage your students. Whatever it is, I know you guys are always looking for ways to improve. And sometimes that's even in just the way you have your room set up. Sometimes changing it around helps. Those little nuances you learn, obviously, as you're in your classroom, which probably feels like 24/7, but finding other areas. What can you improve on in dealing with your students' behavior? Maybe you could talk to other colleagues and see, what do you think about the way I handled this? Or how would you handle this situation? And being able to have that support and that feedback really helps, as you know, to grow and learn and become even better in dealing with student behavior. Because, as we know, challenging student behavior is not going anywhere. And I hope and pray that you are in a school where you have supportive, positive admin who will step in and do what needs to be done to help that challenging student and you. So, just to review, have you seen any positive changes in your students' behavior? What behavior strategies worked well this year? And if you had a quiet or calm corner, did your students use it effectively? Do you see that as being a positive tool area in your room? What was the most challenging behavior that you dealt with effectively? And then what area can you improve on in regards to dealing with your students' behavior? Guys, I know, again, as educators, we are always looking for ways to improve. And how can we learn more? And like I said, you can sign up for my emails in the show notes and get even more tips on how to help your students who are struggling with their behavior. because it really is just an emotional dysregulation, because sometimes they are really going through a lot. So I want to leave you with this quote. You get the best out of others when you give the best of yourself. And that is from Harvey S. Firestone, who is the founder of Firestone Tires. You get the best out of others when you give the best of yourselves. And I know you have done that this year, and maybe your year is not over yet, but you're almost there, so hang on. And remember, you are life changers, and you've done an amazing job, and your students are truly blessed to have you. So thanks so much, guys. We will see you next week. Thanks so much for listening. I truly appreciate your support. And if I have encouraged you, motivated you to continue to learn, to support your students, even better, to help them strive in your classroom, please leave a review, hit that subscribe button so that others can see they can learn and grow here as well. Thank you.